The changes in Myra did not go unnoticed by her family, friends, and colleagues. At work, coworkers stated that she had become surly, overbearing, aggressive, and mentioned that she started wearing kinky clothes. Her sister, Maureen, stated that after meeting Ian, Myra would no longer go to dances with her friends, but would instead start leading a secretive life, claiming that she hated babies, children, and people. But you couldn't say that Myra was completely oblivious to Ian's troubling personality and ideals. In a letter she wrote to a childhood friend, she had mentioned an incident where she had been drugged by her boyfriend, but also of her obsession with him. A few months later, she would request her friend destroy the letter. What Myra didn't know was that everything Ian was teaching and sharing with her was no more than a test. She was put through a series of tests to see how she performed. And her blind acceptance, caused by her obsession, led her to pass every single one of them. In early 1963, Ian decided it was time for her to take another test. He told her of a plan he had to rob a bank, and that he needed her to be his getaway driver. Instantly, Myra started taking driving lessons and joined the Cheadle Rifle Club, purchasing 2 guns. The whole bank robbery scheme never came to fruition because it was never meant to be carried out. The sole purpose of him telling her that he needed her to be his getaway driver was to show him that she was a willing participant and that she would do whatever he wanted without alarming authorities or anyone else. This was just one step in cementing their relationship, the beginning of carrying out his dark, degrading fantasies. Ian Brady wanted to commit the perfect murder. 16-year-old Pauline Reed was on her way to a dance at the Railway Workers Social Club on July 12, 1963. She had originally intended on going there with 3 of her friends, Linda, Barbara, and Pat. But when their parents heard alcohol would be involved, they weren't allowed to go. So, Pauline decided she would go alone. By 8 o'clock, Pauline left her house. She was dressed up in a little pink party dress and everything. But what she didn't know was that she was being watched. 2 of her friends, Pat and Dorothy, watched her leave her home and were curious to see if Pauline actually had the nerve to attend the dance by herself. So they followed her. When they were almost to the club, Dorothy and Pat took a shortcut so they could get there before Pauline. They waited for their friend to arrive, but she never showed. When Pauline didn't come home at midnight, her parents, Joan and Amos, went out searching for her. They wouldn't call the police until the next morning, when their night-long search came up with nothing. The police were even stumped as to where the teenager could have gone. It was as if Pauline just disappeared into thin air. But what they didn't know was that she happened to be the very first victim in one of the worst crimes imaginable. That very night, Ian had Myra drive a van while he followed her on his motorcycle. He told her when he spotted a victim, he would flash his headlight. He saw a young girl and signaled for Myra to stop. But she didn't, because she recognized the girl as an 8-year-old neighbor of her mother. She also felt that the disappearance of a young child would receive too much attention. It wasn't long before Ian flashed his headlight again, when he noticed Pauline Reed, who happened to be a classmate of Myra's sister. Myra pulled over and offered her a ride. Once Pauline was in the vehicle, Myra asked the teenager if she would help her search Saddleworth more for an expensive glove she had lost. When Pauline agreed, she drove there. Then Ian arrived on his motorcycle. and Myra told Pauline that he would be helping. Myra claimed she stayed in the van while Ian took Pauline to the moor. After about 30 minutes, he returned alone and proceeded to take Myra to the spot where Pauline lay dying. Her clothes were disheveled, and she had been nearly decapitated by 2 cuts to the throat. There was a 4-inch incision across her voice box. When Myra asked her boyfriend if he had raped the girl, he simply stated, "Of course I did." He then left Myra with Pauline as he went to get a shovel he had hidden earlier, then buried the body. While Myra stated she wasn't present during the crime, Ian claimed that she was not only present during the attack, but she also participated in the sexual assault. 4 months later, on November 23, 1963, the couple found their second victim. 12-year-old John Kilbride went to the local cinema with his friend John Ryan. The movie finished at 5 o'clock, and the friends went to a market in Ashton-under-Lyne in hopes of earning some pocket money. John Ryan then left his friend standing beside a bin to go catch his bus home. After his friend left, Ian and Myra noticed the 12-year-old and offered him a ride home, saying that his parents might worry that he was out so late. They also promised him a bottle of sherry. Ian was the one who stated something about a lost glove at the moor this time. When they reached the moor, Ian took John with him while Myra stayed in the car. Ian sexually assaulted John and tried to slit his throat with a 6-inch serrated blade. He then strangled him with either a shoelace or a string. Ian would go on to bury the body in a shallow grave. His parents, Sheila and Patrick, called the authorities when their son did not return home for dinner. A massive search was conducted to find the 12-year-old. The police and volunteers combed the area for any clue. There was over 700 statements taken and 500 missing posters printed. 8 days after he failed to return home, 2,000 volunteers scoured the waste ground and derelict buildings, but they couldn't find anything. It was reported that at some point after the murder, Ian photographed Myra and her dog Puppet standing on top of John's shallow grave. Almost 7 months later, another child would go missing. On June 16, 1964, 12-year-old Keith Bennett was on his way to his grandmother's house. Every Tuesday, he would spend the night with his grandma, and this Tuesday was no different. Her house was just a mile away from his home, so he would always walk there by himself. His mother had watched him over the crossing and onto Stockport Road, then left to go to bingo in the opposite direction. That was the last time his mom saw him. As the boy was walking to his grandmother's house, Myra pulled up beside him with Ian in the back of the van, and she asked for help loading some boxes into her pickup and offered to drive him home when they were done. Myra then drove to Saddleworth Moor, where Ian and Bennett walked off, searching for the imaginary lost glove yet again. Again, the victim was sexually assaulted and strangled, then buried. When Keith didn't arrive at his grandmother's house, she assumed that his mother decided not to send him, or believing that there was some innocent explanation as to why he didn't show up. His disappearance wouldn't be discovered until the next morning when the grandmother arrived at her daughter's house without Keith. Authorities were immediately called. A search was conducted, but again, it was as if a child disappeared into thin air. His stepfather, Jimmy Johnson, became a suspect in the case. The stepfather was taken for questioning on 4 separate occasions within 2 years after Keith's disappearance. Investigators even searched under the floorboards of the family home, and on discovering that the houses were connected, they extended their search to the entire street. 6 months after this, another child would go missing. On the afternoon of December 26th, 1964, Leslie Ann Downey had gone with her 2 brothers and friends to the local fair, which was only 10 minutes away from her home. It didn't take long for the young ones to use up all of their pocket money and were left bored with nothing to do. Everyone in the group decided to go home, all except for Leslie. One of her classmates remembered seeing her at about 5:30 standing alone next to one of the rides. Ian and Myra just so happened to be at the fair that day when they noticed Leslie seemingly alone. They approached the young girl, deliberately dropped some of their shopping that they were carrying, and then asked her for help taking the packages to their vehicle, and then they brought her to their house. At their home, Leslie was undressed, gagged, and forcibly posed for photographs before being raped and killed. The brutal attack was recorded on an audio tape, which captured both Ian and Myra's voices while their victim screamed. Myra would later state that she went to run a bath for Leslie, but when she returned, she was dead. However, Ian would say Myra was the one who strangled the child, which happens to be the version which most closely corresponds with the audio tape recording, but we'll get into that later. When Leslie did not return home for dinner, her mother and stepfather began searching for her, which proved fruitless. They then contacted the police. The countryside was searched and thousands of people were questioned, with missing posters displayed everywhere. But no one knew what happened to her. Authorities would initially look at the stepfather as the culprit and would be questioned repeatedly about Leslie's disappearance. The day after her abduction and murder, Ian and Myra would drive Leslie's body to Settleworth Moor, burying her still naked, placing her clothes at her feet in a shallow grave. The killer couple wouldn't strike again until the evening of October 6th, 1965. Myra drove Ian to Manchester's Central Railway Station. She remained in the vehicle while he was out searching for their next victim. After waiting for a few moments, Ian appeared again with 17-year-old Edward Evans. He introduced Myra as his sister, claiming that he had picked Edward up for a sexual encounter. They then drove back to their house on Wardle Brook Avenue. At some point during the evening, Ian had Myra go get David Smith, her brother-in-law, someone who was known to have had several criminal convictions. Ian had been trying to cultivate a friendship with David over the past year, a relationship that worried Myra, and for good reason. After Myra collected David, she left him in the kitchen with the miniature wine bottles she had promised. As he stood alone reading the label, he heard a loud, piercing scream. A shriek that he thought it was a woman at first. Suddenly, Myra was calling for him from the living room. When he entered the room, David saw Ian holding what he thought was a life-sized rag doll. But when it fell against the couch, only 2 feet away from him, he realized it was actually a man. David then witnessed Ian standing over the man with a hatchet in his right hand. Edward lay face down on the floor. When he groaned, Ian raised the axe in the air, striking him on the left side of the head. There was silence. But after a few seconds, the man groaned again, but it was much lower. Ian lifted the hatchet above his head and brought it down again. The only sound that could be heard was a gurgling noise. David then witnessed Ian placing a cover over the young man's head and wrapping a piece of electrical wire around his neck. As Ian repeatedly pulled on the wire, he reportedly stated, "You fucking dirty bastard." When the victim grew still and stopped making any noises, Ian looked up at Myra and said, "That's it. It's the messiest yet." After this, Myra made her boyfriend and David a cup of tea. You know, something normal that you do. The killer couple joked with each other about the look on Edward's face when Ian struck him with the hatchet. David sat there, listening to the couple. Ian and Myra laughed as they related another instance when Myra was confronted by a cop while burying another victim on Saddleworth Moor. David recalled Ian telling him that he had killed some people before, but David thought it was just some sort of dark, sick fantasy. He didn't believe Ian was being serious. He was terrified and worried for his own safety. Did he really just witness his sister-in-law's boyfriend murder someone? Were they really just making light of the situation? How can he get out of this with his life? He decided the best option was to keep calm and go along with them. David helped Myra and Ian tie up the body, carry it to an upstairs bedroom, and clean the mess. He would not receive the opportunity to escape from the two killers until the early hours of the next morning, with the promise he would return to help them dispose of the body. When David made it back home, he was violently ill from the whole ordeal. He told his wife everything, and together they went to the authorities. Please continue to part 3.